Demons that Ciri herself fights, battles which Frieren struggled to claim victory in, and certified monsters still alive across the lands. Demons without a doubt wield some of the most overpowered and broken abilities within the entire Frieren story, some existing for much longer than Frieren herself, who by the way is confirmed as over 1,000 years old now. So here are the top 10 strongest demons that have been introduced in the Frieren anime and manga, where today I'll be revealing everything you need to know, so make sure you're subscribed here on Mysterious Weeb for more Frieren greatness. First is an honorable mention that will likely take a spot in the top 10 when she returns in the future. This is Tot, a greater demon known as the Saint of the End, which may have her name pronounced as Todd, but she is a demon who Frieren told Fern about when breaking down what great demons are, claiming that while Fern is a superior mage, she is half a century too young to take on one of them, and that every great demon that possesses vast mana, without exception, has lived for eons. But the only time we saw this demon was during the arc where Frieren went back in time to the Heroes Party, in which the Demon King sent these great demons to check out the situation that he sensed, wanting them to work together for the sake of demonkind's survival, while others are just here for the thrill of the battle, where Tot says this. This sounds ridiculous, so I will be heading back, claiming that this is for the great Demon King or for the existence of demons. I really couldn't care less. I'm content with pursuing magic and not being troubled over food the next day. Besides, you know already, don't you? Although it's only 30% ready right now, in another 100 years, my curse shall engulf this star, with other translations claiming this as the world. So I shall live in secret until then. I'm not particularly strong at fighting, and I don't want to perish anyway, in which the other great demons claim as she is leaving. It seems that her battlefield will unfold in the future, pretty much confirming that at some point in the future of the Frieren story, as it has indeed almost been that 100 years, will feature a battle between either Frieren and this demon, Fern, or some others, her return, as we have no information about her being killed or defeated at any point since these reveals. With of course the claim that she's not particularly strong at fighting, something a lot of demons like this one tend to claim, where we know that isn't exactly the case, so take that with a grain of salt. And the fact that she has the title of Greater Demon, she's without a doubt broken, particularly with her dedication to this supposed curse that can engulf the entire world. So insanity awaits, that's for sure. Now with that out of the way, let's go over the top 10 strongest demons that we've seen in the story so far. 10th is Divine Revolte, a warrior demon that you could say is the main demon for season 2 of the Frieren anime, and pretty much set a standard of what warrior demons are truly capable of. For example, listen to this. And you know when first learning about him that he's not a dual wielder, but a quadruple wielder, bro was going to wield some aura. Getting confirmation that he's defeated and killed first class mages before alongside other capable fighters, where Frieren reveals that a demon general or a demon shogun, as an alternative translation you may see when you're reading it, is a skilled demon warrior that bear great magical power, often strengthening their physical capabilities and even utilize martial arts when fighting as well. Among the demons, there are some who spend centuries to master their arts, similar to someone seeking out enlightenment, and Frieren even tells Stark that there were shoguns in the Demon King's army that were far more powerful than even Ison, which is crazy to think about, particularly ones on the grind like this one here, who was highlighted as more tactical and actually goes in with a strategy similar to more so lower ranked demons, highlighting that yes, he wields insane power, but isn't going to be stupid in really any situation, alongside Frieren noting that him wielding 4 blades does make fighting with him awkward, as this doesn't typically happen, a unique demon even among the entire race. With first class mage Gunnau revealing that Revolte was the one to kill his partner, and that he has the ability to freely alter the weight of his blades, meaning at times he can make them lighter than a feather and as pointy as one as well, or as heavy as a boulder, up to his will, similar to the sword that pulverized mountains during the mythical era, a period in which Ciri is from, Divine pulverizes, and reveals that the magic required to forge a weapon like this is pretty much the pure embodiment of killing intent, and that a demon that creates these kind of weapons would be the slaughterer of many, and that's exactly what Revolte is, as the warrior pulls up right away a 1v2 against Gunnau and Stark, where the demon does quite well throughout the majority of the fight, with it being of course important to note that Stark is quite impressive, but Gunnau is one of the more skilled and experienced mages when it comes to close quarters combat, as that's his forte, alongside fighting demons as well. But this is a general and manages to damage both of his opponents and almost take them out right away. However, regardless of any point of him actually taking damage, he doesn't hesitate or stop to any degree. Revolte keeps on going, with the other demon being part of the battle as well to get a cheap shot against Gunnau. However, Revolte still manages to keep the fight close at every instant. Yes, it's not a long fight by any degree, and Stark has insane hype and demonstrations of power being able to block Revolte's attack, which needs to be mentioned over and over. But this demon isn't making it easy for them by any means. It's a 1v2 at this point, and anything can really happen. If it was someone else, maybe a non-warrior or a non-close quarters combat mage, they may have already been cooked, and regardless of facing a fatal wound, the demon's speed has not slowed down, with their durability being highlighted as many times above humanity. But as the fight progresses, more of his hands and swords are taken out, where we see the demon pierce both Stark and Gunnau with his hands alone, talking shit about humanity, claiming one's bare hands could never be used as a weapon, a human concept. You were under the impression that if I lost my weapons like this, I will be rendered unable to fight. This is my victory. At least that's what he assumed, underestimating humans as well, where both Gunnau and Stark managed to finish the demon, but were on the brink of death and may have actually died if the others didn't arrive and heal them, where the fight could have been recognized as a draw, highlighting how monstrous Revolte truly was. Regardless of the fight being quite short, it was an intense one. Therefore, I think I made it pretty clear that this warrior demon is without a doubt one of the strongest characters we've seen in the Frieren story to this day, and would have been a problem under various different matchups, meaning he's more than worthy of 10th place. While 9th is Qual, one that has a very unique title considering his lore, that being the Elder Sage of Corruption, and regardless of people claiming he's on Fraud Watch and the narrative of humanity using his magic, using his fundamentals to evolve it to what they have in the current day, he's still such a monster The second he would be unsealed, Frieren is the one that pulls up after defeating the Demon King, getting many times stronger after all those events, being a certified problem when the Heroes Party first came upon him, in which they could not claim victory, going down the path of sealing him until they were strong enough. And while yes, this was early during their journey, but it's still after Frieren had been fully trained up by her master for the sake of killing demons, meaning Frieren and Fern being the ones to take him out isn't a downscale to any degree, and likely would have been a problem like he was in the past. So 9th place may actually be a low ball, but bro was definitely worthy of the top 10. Now number 8 is Bose, known as the Immortal, and the first member of the 7 Sages of Destruction featured in today's video, with it still being the case that 3 haven't been introduced to us in the story thus far, with this dude having the least amount of information out of the 4 revealed. All we know is that he was one that actually survived the battle against the Hero of the Self, which may have something to do with his title, the Immortal, and him wielding some apparently unbreakable barrier magic that is pretty much his main ability seemingly from what we got from him. But he was of course defeated by the Heroes Party, something when Frieren described featured her giving him a lot of glaze, particularly when it comes to his defensive magic. However, in combination with physical attacks from warriors and swordsmen, with Frieren herself, they're able to break down his barrier and defeat him. One of the Sages of Destructions they actually killed throughout their journey, so I doubt there's going to be any more information revealed about him, but since he was able to get to the level of being recognized as a 7th Sage of Destruction, he is considered a greater demon and without a doubt above most of demonkind. Now when it comes to rank 7, we have another Sage of Destruction, this time Aura the Guillotine. One that wields an outright overpowered ability that did give her a lot of victories throughout her life. However, in the past she was defeated by the Heroes Party, notably Himmel, and then in the current day was killed and defeated by Frieren herself. But people need to remember that current Frieren, after defeating the Demon King, is much stronger than any point previously in the story, highlighted to a wild extent when she went back in the past with her current abilities, alongside the fact that Aura lasted longer than most of the Sages of Destruction, meaning her power continued to grow, her mana continued to grow. Therefore, when it comes to her ability, in most matchups she would actually win just outright, no difficulty at all. It's just unfortunate that she had to face Frieren and the overconfidence she wielded in that situation, which would have given her a victory in most other situations, particularly if she was a longer living demon as well. So rank 7 without a doubt. Bringing us to rank 6, Grausam, who is once again another Sage of Destruction and highlighted as one of the most loyal characters to the Demon King throughout the story. One that also survived the battle against the Hero of the Self and was defeated by Frieren and the Hero Party at some point. Something I believe hasn't been highlighted or hasn't been shown in the manga so far, but this dude was pretty much brought by the right hand man of the Demon King Schlacht as a direct counter for the strongest Sage of Destruction, Macht, meaning his abilities are without a doubt overpowered, and we saw that during the flashback arc in which this Sage of Destruction was able to outplay the current Frieren and Himmel with his illusion magic, at least to some degree, alongside having the ability to read and likely erase memories as well, making him very beneficial to the continued existence of demonkind with his abilities. And I do wonder how they exactly defeated him, considering his elusive nature, but without a doubt one of the stronger Sage of Destructions and one of the more important ones we've had introduced throughout the Frieren story. Now onto the top 5. Fifth is one that isn't part of the 7 Sages of Destruction, but is confirmed as on par with the strongest of them. The nameless greater demon Solitar, the character who on screen so far throughout the Frieren story has given Frieren herself by far her toughest fight. This is in the current day as well. So much so that Frieren wasn't really able to damage her throughout the battle due to this demon's insane control of her mana, alongside the insane amount she wields, being described as on par with Macht, the one recognized as the strongest Sage of Destruction, on par with Frieren herself, with it being possible that Solitar had more mana than Frieren, which is crazy to think about, and does highlight why she indeed struggled so much. Alongside this ability to seemingly create these mana-based blades as her main fighting style, alongside being not against using human magic and developing as an overall mage, very different to other demons, and likely connects to a very long age, potentially one of the longest living demons throughout the entire story as well, at least until her defeat in the current day very recently when it comes to the manga content. Therefore, while not being a member of the 7 Sages of Destruction, her power is comparable to the strongest in that group, with there being literally arguments available that she's stronger than Macht as well, meaning for all we know she could be rank 2 in today's video, but this is the spot where I believe she belongs. Now on to rank 4, another greater demon who also isn't part of the Sages of Destruction. You could say this is the pinnacle of warriors when it comes to demonkind. It is Rivale, the bloody god of war, who wasn't just a warrior demon or a general, was also a greater demon and pretty much claims himself as the strongest warrior in demonkind. And based on the 2 clashes we've seen him have so far in the Frieren story against the peaks of the warrior world when it comes to the dwarfs, he probably is him, alongside just being the one Stark is going to face and defeat in the future of the story, as he was the one who destroyed Stark's village in his flashback as well. Additionally, character-wise, he is a demon that only cares about fights and being recognized as the strongest, growing in power, which is more evidence for his superior nature, alongside being one of the few known greater demons still alive within the Frieren story, meaning when he does get his grand return, in combination with the insane amount of glaze warriors have been receiving in recent day when it comes to the current arc of assassinating Ciri, the demon peak of that universe is without a doubt going to be a monster, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being at rank 2 or getting some arguments to be on this level as well. That's how built different this legend truly is, alongside the next level setup Stark's gotten, with the likes of Ison even being scared of him, highlighting that kid's insane potential, so that battle is going to feed everyone. Now rank 2 is the right hand of the Demon King, the one and only Schlacht, which requires me to pretty much break down the hero of the South as both of their narratives interloop throughout the story, at least for what we've seen so far, for the sake of the continued existence of demonkind. The Demon King's confidant, said to control magic that could see up to 1,000 years in the future, the Omniscient Schlacht, along with all other Sages of Destruction, attacked him together. That's right, a 1v8 of the strongest demons the world has ever known. But even so, the hero of the Self took down 3 of the sages and clashed with the Omniscient Schlacht, defeating him as well. But let's take it from the perspective of the demons, which highlights the whole situation around the hero of the Self's defeat even more insane. We have a scene where the pretty much right hand or second in command after the Demon King approaches Macht, the one widely considered as the strongest Sage of Destruction, at least based on like 50 statements confirming as such from Frieren and pretty much everyone else. The main focus of Season 3's anime, where we have Schlacht approach him and say, "Sage of Destruction, Macht of El Dorado, I would like your assistance in taking down the hero of the Self." Knowing very well that Macht is different to all other demons and isn't someone that would follow the orders of the great Demon King, not caring what happens to him, including the army as well. But Schlacht makes it clear that this was an imperial command from the Demon King himself, highlighting the importance of taking out the hero of the Self, and if you disobey, we have no choice but to kill you. But they have an interaction between one another where he says, "Do you think you can? Do you think I can't?" Highlighting that the strongest Sage of Destruction and the Omniscient Schlacht are probably relative to one another. However, he came prepared with, yes, another Sage of Destruction, who Macht refers to as the worst match for me, meaning a counter, forcing him to accept the situation where we are told this: "Don't think, just fight. No need for any strategy. Your overwhelming presence is enough to limit the moves the hero of the Self can take," which throughout his arc, his golden ability could be regarded as potentially the most overpowered we've seen in Frieren so far, highlighting that his existence on the field outright nerfs and limits the hero of the Self insanely, where Schlacht says, "I've already fought against the hero of the Self across countless future worlds that I have envisioned. As I've said before, this demon has the ability to potentially see up to 1,000 years in the future, and the conclusion I have reached, no trouble will befall you," highlighting that Macht won't lose his life during this battle, however he will indeed, what we know occurred, and pretty much confirms throughout this conversation that taking out the hero of the Self isn't just for their own means to win the battle, it's for the absolute survival of the demon race, at least up to the next 1,000 years, which is crazy, with Schlacht even being aware of Frieren and likely the defeat of the Demon King due to this ability, but is more focused on their outright survival, meaning taking out the hero of the Self could be argued as more important than taking out Frieren the Slayer or even Himmel, for the sake of maintaining the existence of the demon race. Once again, further glaze for the southern hero, and even requires a further plan as well. After the battle concludes, Macht will have his memories wiped, so at some point in the future, Frieren, upon reading his memories, won't see what actually happened during this battle against the southern hero, further highlighting the importance of this battle and the legend of this hero, which could very well have further reveals in the future. Which isn't just in regards to the hero of the Self, Schlacht getting further reveals about his abilities and fighting style is something I'm imagining most of us would see, but this whole story about him pretty much highlights that he's much different to most demons we've seen throughout the Frieren story, and to a similar note of himself knowing he's going to die, the hero of the Self was also aware he was going to lose his life, meaning at the end of all things, Schlacht, you could say, was victorious when it comes to his broader goal of maintaining the survival of the demon race, but still we are quite limited on what we know, so third place is the highest he can go, with rank 2 being Macht himself, the most glazed demon you could say throughout all of Frieren, confirmed like 100 times as the strongest 7th Sage of Destruction. Schlacht needed help of another Sage, a counter, to get him on his side, kinda implying that he wouldn't be able to do it himself, at least to some degree. Wields potentially the most overpowered ability to date, being able to pretty much turn anything into gold, was able to clash with Ciri, and while it did look like Ciri was destroying him, somewhat managed to hold his own during that battle, is always down to throw hands, whether it be monstrous mages of humanity, is pretty much a one-man army, and you could say was only taken out due to the insane circumstances of his battle against Denken, alongside comparisons to the Demon King himself, whether this be mindset or regard as a demon. Macht has pretty much everything going for him, and is probably the demon we've seen the most and learnt the most about throughout all of Frieren, being more than worthy of rank 2, while number 1 by no surprise is the Demon King himself, with this being what we know about him so far. He was controlling his demon army and waging war against the human realms for over 1000 years. He was defeated by the Heroes Party. Absolute facts within the Frieren story. And technically has only appeared one time throughout the entire manga. This is during chapter 22 in this panel at the bottom here, but to be fair, it's not like this is 100% confirmed to even be the Demon King. It just makes sense considering the context of Frieren going over her entire life since her master died, but still no official reveal by any means. And most fans of the series can probably come to the conclusion that the Demon King was the strongest of all demons, naturally due to the power hierarchy they have when noting things like rankings and titles we've seen throughout the series. Ciri claims during chapter 57 of the manga that demons are far more sensitive to mana than us people. If you are not naturally gifted, you cannot hope to deceive them even after restraining your mana for 1 or 2 centuries. It's undeniably a waste of time. Using that time to train in something else instead would make you several times more powerful. It is terribly inefficient. However, that inefficiency could also bring about vulnerabilities in an opponent. In a battle between 2 skilled mages, the miscalculation of the opponent's mana is likely to lead straight to death. In reality, Frieren is a mage who is lacking in technique relative to her age, but that is how she defeated the demons. That's how far that girl polished her mana restraint. As far as I'm aware, only the Demon King was able to see through it in a single glance, which is pretty much just an additional way to highlight that the Demon King is indeed above all the other demons Frieren the Slayer has defeated in her time, with it being important to note that the Demon King's motives kinda connected to coexistence with humanity, but through the killing of many of them, a conflicting but similar view to Macht as we learnt throughout that arc. But again, we don't really get absolute definitive statements in regards to that. He was also somehow aware that Frieren would go 80 years back in time after he was long gone, a crazy feat that just happened out of nowhere with him ordering these greater demons to pretty much watch over the situation, alongside him being one to order the massacre of the elves within the Frieren world as well, perhaps highlighting that he's aware of them being a threat. But this brings us to one of the most common discussions throughout the Frieren fanbase, Ciri versus the Demon King, and why the Great Mage wasn't the one or didn't fight him, which is mostly answered by Ciri not being really about the peaceful era, and if she was to defeat the Demon King, it would go against her ideals in that sense. That's pretty much the main reason we've gotten throughout the series. Not that she wouldn't really be capable of such, however, at the end of the day, we still don't know the truth. What we do know is it took Frieren, the ultimate demon-slaying mage, Himmel, one of the most legendary heroes of all time, and has some crazy speed feats so far within the Frieren story, Ison, one widely recognized as the strongest warrior in history, and is presented as an absolute monster in every regard anytime Frieren talks about him, and Haiter, who is also a prodigy when it comes to the goddess's magic, and a monster in his own regard as well, being childhood friends with Himmel. A dream team in a sense, who managed to do something that was thought to be impossible.